Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we are talking about new routes under consideration for Amtrak.
This is super exciting news because they have just come out with some new routes that are under consideration for Amtrak. Back in 2021, there was some money that was set aside for Amtrak, and they had to do some studies that have taken several years to determine which routes were going to be viable and which ones were up for consideration. The Federal Railroad Administration has done that work, and they've released this map. Now, these are not routes that are definitely going to happen, but these are the ones that are under consideration. So I think the way you could look at this is if it's not on this map, it's probably not going to happen because it's not under consideration. But there is a pretty good likelihood that a lot of these routes will come to fruition. So we're going to throw the map up here, and the routes that are in green are the new routes under consideration. The red and the blue are the ones that already exist.
Yeah, and there's some pretty exciting additions on here for the considerations. I think one of the big things to note here is that it looks like they're strongly considering the two U.S. states that do not currently have routes running through them, and that is South Dakota and Wyoming.
Yeah, outside of Alaska and Hawaii, they're the only two in the continental U.S. that didn't have routes, so that'll be pretty cool, because it's going to bring Amtrak service to more people. You'll be able to get your 50 states in almost on Amtrak. You'll still have to go to the other two. But that's going to be something that you'll be able to do. And to see new parts of the country will be really, really neat. One of the things that I noticed right off the bat was that Amtrak, when you look at this map, has always had pretty good coverage east to west. But north to south, it's been very lacking, with only the Coast Starlight and then the City of New Orleans train going from Chicago, and then a couple of very far East Coast trains. But now you're getting some really nice north-south routes going through Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, through Iowa. That's going to let you cut across the country without having to make the big loop that you currently have to make.
Yeah, and I think one of the other big things to note is there were a lot of services lacking in the southeast as well. We are, we're from Atlanta, so that's where a lot of our train rides are based out of, and we're finally, it looks like, they're at least considering, because it is on this list, trying to get some getting to the north without having to go south first.
Yeah, exactly. Because right now, if you're in Atlanta and you want to go to Chicago, you've either got to go to New Orleans and then go north, or you've got to go all the way over to D.C. and then go to Chicago. And to get to Florida is a huge hassle because you have to go up to D.C. and then go all the way south. So Atlanta is one of the big winners in this one, which we are certainly happy about. That's going to make it so much easier and bring train travel. And that makes sense because it's a really underserved city currently on the Amtrak map. The other one, look at Fort Worth and Dallas area. There are green routes coming out of that like crazy, almost like a star. So they're currently from Fort Worth, you can only go up to Oklahoma City or go to Chicago. Now you're going to be able to go just about anywhere you want.
Yeah, I think that is a huge one. Those are probably the two big winners. Plus, South Dakota and Wyoming now would actually have a train route running through them, which again, I think is super cool to not leave those out, because that will service actually a ton of people in those two states, to not have to try to travel to a different state in order to get onto an Amtrak train. People in Wyoming and South Dakota will actually be able to, hop on an Amtrak train. Probably a little harder for the people in South Dakota because it's mostly going to be, it looks like it's going to be mostly right out of Sioux Falls. But in Wyoming, it looks like a lot coming in and out of Cheyenne. So we'll see how they do as far as those segment options too coming out of Wyoming. That's interesting. The other big thing is the Las Vegas connection.
Yeah, that's a great one because having Las Vegas connected to Los Angeles and also to Salt Lake City is huge. Everybody wants to go to Vegas, and you don't want to drive there because then you have to deal with your car. You don't really need a car
No.
in Las Vegas.
You don't want to park it either.
You don't want to park it. You don't pay to park it. So it makes total sense to have that. People doing day trips, and that's just a good one. So got a couple other things like train up to Green Bay. That's interesting. That could be get some tourism for their sports teams, and one going all the way south as far as Laredo, which is some new territory for Amtrak. Now we will mention that this does not include high-speed rail. So if it was your dream that high-speed rail was coming and you're going to go from LA to New York in 10 to 12 hours, something like that, it's not going to happen probably anytime soon. This is regular rail. This is not high-speed rail. So, I think you have to kind of take it for what it is, and it's a huge improvement on the existing Amtrak map.
Yeah, I think it's something that is definitely needed, and I'm so glad that they took the time to do the studies that they needed to do for these consideration. I know they've been kind of going through a whole process with a variety of meetings. So each time, I think we're getting a little bit closer to it being a reality. It'll be really exciting once they do finalize this, but they do have a lot of money to work with, which I think is great. And in the process, they are also doing something that we've been asking for a long time, which is also updating the train cars.
Exactly. So I think what you'll see here is basically, right now Amtrak has 1, 2, 3 possible hubs, which is Chicago is the main Amtrak hub, followed by New York. It looks to me like Dallas-Fort Worth is going to also sort of become a hub, kind of a connecting point, and in the Southeast, Atlanta will be sort of that hub. You don't see many new routes out in the California, Oregon, Seattle, on the West Coast. Also not up in the Northeast. You're not seeing, there's not much green up there either. So they're really kind of connecting the South and the Midwest to the rest of the country, which has kind of been a big need, frankly, for a while. So we'd like to know what you think looking at this map. What were some ones that they aren't considering that kind of leave you wishing they had? And what are some of the ones that you most hope are going to come to fruition off of this list?
Yeah, I think also one that we didn't really chat too much about just yet is the Florida connection. Just being able to cover across the Panhandle and all the way down to Miami, that has always been tricky. I think maybe the what they've learned from Brightline addition has helped also to kind of encourage bringing more service to Florida. I think that's really going to be a key one as well, being able to go across the Panhandle and then all the way down. That's going to be a lot of people that they're servicing.
Yeah, so there is also another part to this, which is to bring more service, more daily trains to the existing routes, which is also good because a lot of these routes, they're very underserved, and it's hard to get the train, frankly, when you want to go on it. It's kind of like you have to go when they're going, and that's not always a very good time in some cities. Some cities, the train rolls up at 3 in the morning, and no one's really getting up at 3 in the morning to get on a train, and it's the only train per day that will go through there. So that would be another great addition, as if they could have more trains on existing routes, different times of day, to alleviate some of that the bad timings that are currently in place.
Yeah, so, a while back we did do a video talking about what are some things that we would like to see changed, and some of the routes that we had suggested in that video have been added in here, which is really important, specifically, again, going back to our home station, which is Atlanta, having all the services out of there. But I think definitely for the people in Texas, just having that, possible Fort Worth hub is going to be pretty huge too.
Yeah, and I'm always looking for the pretty scenic routes. And so of these, it's hard to say without having been on the route, but it looks like that northwest corridor of Boise, Montana, and Wyoming, that could be pretty scenic. Also, the one cutting through from Salt Lake to Las Vegas, That's a pretty scenic area. Like that looks like it's going right through where some of those really cool national parks are. So depending on what stops are there, that might be one of my favorite routes, Salt Lake to Las Vegas. We've driven that before, and it's actually stunning.
It's stunning. You don't even have to be in the national parks. Utah is so beautiful to drive through that I imagine, just looking at this map from where that's going to be running through, like you said, I imagine that is going to be really good looking. And, that part of Nevada also is really beautiful. So
Yeah.
there's a lot to see there. And definitely would be a lot more fun to on a train instead of driving it. We, like you said, we've driven it actually tons of times. We used to do a lot of work out in Las Vegas, so we used to go out there a lot. And that drive sometimes can be a little bit of a slog, but it would be amazing on a train. I think very scenic.
Yeah, I wonder if that route would challenge the California Zephyr for most scenic Amtrak route. We'll see. We'll see how it comes to fruition.
Yeah, so guys, we are so excited about this process. They've been working, I think, really hard on these, really put a lot of work into, kind of dialing into what the need actually is. So let us know what you think down in the comments. What are you looking forward to? Is your city going to be added to this new route list? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, guys, and we will see you next time.